What is the, what's the giggles over there?
Are you ready?
I guess so, sure.
Hey, Dotty.
Hi, David.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
What does it feel like for you to sit still?
As I'm rocking over here, there are some challenges with sitting still for me. Adult diagnosed ADHD, so my whole life was definitely a bit of a challenge, especially in school. I started kindergarten when I was 4, and my parents didn't seem to realize that school was a struggle for me. And I realized later on it was mainly because I couldn't pay attention to save my life for a lot of things. And I definitely have the HD, so I'm constantly moving. Chilling and relaxing are very difficult for me, and it sounds really great when I hear other people doing it. I have goals to strive to do it, but then when it comes time for that to happen, I constantly am sitting there thinking of like, what could I be doing with my time? Did I waste that time? How else could I have done it to be, more efficient? And what else could I have gotten done? Because I try to capitalize every single minute and second of the day, and it's hard for me. You know that.
So if someone said you've just got to sit still for an hour in that chair, not say a word, not look at your phone, how would that feel?
The easiest way would probably be for me to be asleep, which I have no problem doing when I finally drag my butt to bed. I can actually motor down and shut it down, which I know for a lot of people that's a little challenging, but literally I work myself to exhaustion. And then by the time I drag myself to bed and hit the pillow, I'm out. So I could possibly do that if I've worn myself down that far. If I do sit still, I can eventually, but it is a challenge.
Are there any moments in your life where you feel good about sitting still and you feel good about taking that time?
I do, and I'm intentional about that, right? So I know my body well enough that I know how many hours of sleep that I need to have before I literally pass out. Yes, I have tested that theory before. I need at least 5, by the way, and I know I'm supposed to get more. But I am able to make some time for things that are important for me. I prioritize those things. So I am capable. I'm not a complete jerk when it comes to that, but I am very intentional about it, and it's not always spontaneous. It's usually planned out for where I need some downtime to take care of myself or certain things that I really need to do.
And as you've aged, you obviously said as a kid it caused explainable and obvious issues. With the understanding and growing and learning about how to navigate the world, would you say that you've embraced it more, or you've learned to regulate it more, or a bit of both?
I think I have a little bit of both. I think I've learned more about myself and the awareness of it, right? I learned about it as I was helping my kids navigate it. And when they told me it was genetic, I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense looking back at certain moments of my life that I'm like, this is why I struggled with this. It's actually one of the reasons I became a teacher, because school is so hard for me. And I had different teachers who were very understanding of that and were able to help me navigate that, and others that were very rigid and structured, that it was really a challenge because I didn't meet their expectations when they expected me to be there. That happened a lot with my parents as well. Just certain things that I wasn't able to do in that time frame because of my afflictions, right? So for me, I think getting to know more about myself and helping my kids navigate that, it's better prepared me for how to prepare myself for things, especially when I have like meetings or deadlines, projects that I need to do. I know I have to give myself a shorter leash and a tighter rein on what time I have and the amount of work I need to put into it so that I get the quality that I'm looking for at the end. So I think it's helped me prepare better for myself.
It certainly can be a superpower.
Yeah.
No doubt. Okay. Can you close your eyes for me, please? And first, I'm just going to ask you to notice your breath.
I just took a breath in. Yep.
as it goes in and goes out? What does that feel like to breathe?
It's relaxing. It's a strategy that I use with my students through meditation and just, getting oxygen to the brain, letting you just take it in and exhaling and just releasing a lot of the tension and the stress that you have. I carry a lot of mine at my shoulders and I forget that because I'm so tense. And so breathing intentionally really helps me center myself and prepare myself for what I have to do next.
What do you have to do next?
Finish answering all your questions. And then I have a myriad of errands and things that I have to do after this that I've mapped out in my brain.
And what does the inside of your brain look like?
If I were to look at it right now, I feel like it has sparks and things happening all over because I'm constantly thinking of things I need to do, things I want to do, ideas. So I think all the synapses are firing off all over the place like the 4th of July.
And that's constant?
I think so, yeah.
How are you able to slow it down and zoom in on?
I make a lot of lists for myself. I don't know how I'd live without the reminders that I have and the note pages that I have in my phone. And I journal, I write those things down, and I have Post-it notes all over the place to help me remember them because as soon as they come in, they also exit. So I have to try to remember them in some way.
How does it feel sitting here with your eyes closed and sitting so still, much more still than you were a few minutes ago?
It's peaceful. I'm aware of what's going on. I hear the sounds behind me, and I'm trying to focus more because my brain is constantly thinking of other things that sometimes I forget what my train of thought is in the middle of a sentence.
Does that trip you up a lot?
It does, yeah. And my students and my friends and family know enough that I'll be in the middle of talking and be like, what was I talking about? And I just need one word to remind me, and then I'll come back and I'll be able to finish the thought. But yeah, sometimes it does get into the way of my daily living.
You can open your eyes again now. Welcome back.
Thanks.
And I say this with a sense of irony. You, humans, are the most interesting and complex thing to come out of the universe. How does that make you feel?
I always say this because I look at other species and I'm like, well, they have to be able to communicate with each other. I wonder what they're thinking. I say this about dogs and cats of like, what are they thinking? I wish that I knew. And it's interesting because we can only communicate with ourselves, right? And so I'm a very curious person. I ask lots of questions. I love to gain knowledge about things that I don't know about, even things that I don't agree with, right? I always like to hear other people's perspectives. And I think it's really interesting as a human race, how different we are, but how similar we are in certain ways, but how unique everybody is. And looking at the core of humanity, of like what everybody has, and recognizing that and respecting it,
And what are the big things you think everyone has?
The ability to learn from each other, to respect each other. And I think a lot of stuff is deep-rooted from your origins and how you were raised. It's in there. It's just a matter of how people get it out. Either they've learned it and it's been nurtured from their family, or as they become adults, and maybe they see it and they notice their deficits of something that they can grow for themselves, even if they weren't given it.
What are the things that you think link all of us, regardless of our upbringing, backgrounds, perspective? Like, what are the things that make us human versus anything else, I guess?
I want to say caring about each other. And it's interesting because it's not always demonstrated, but people have different ways to show how they care about somebody, whether it's a close friend or a family member that because they're related to us by blood, you treat them differently, right? But I know that there's certain people that, you bring into your life and they become your family, and how you show them that kind of love. So caring, compassionate love, I feel like is something that everybody has, but is definitely shown in a different manner.
I agree. I think it's more the better. On a scale of 0 to 100, right? 100 being the most compassionate species, we could be 0 being the least compassionate. Where do you think we stand in this present moment as a species? If you're being honest.
We're struggling. I see that. I've been teaching for over 20 years, and just in the way that we parent is so different, right? I'm of the age now where I'm older than many of the parents that I'm working with right now, and I have parent-teacher conferences starting up on Friday and Monday. I'm very open, honest, and blunt when it comes to certain things, and some of our parents aren't doing what they need to do, and their kids are suffering because of that. And so my little microcosm of my classroom, it's a very good analysis for me to see where we are in society, right? I have students who can read at the first grade level, and a lot of it is as I'm talking to them, finding out what happens at home. A lot of kids weren't read to when they were babies, infants, right? Like those little things are so important. Those formative types of things help build your foundation. And if you don't have those skills, you suffer down the road because of that. And a lot of people don't think that's important, but there are a lot of parenting things that we aren't doing for our kids, and our society is suffering because of that. You know, you go out and you see families going out to dinner or whatever, which is great. And I have 2-year-olds sitting there scrolling on someone's phone so they can have a conversation or whatever, right? Or even grown adults who can't put their phones down because one more thing, an alert has come up. It's not important. It's important to connect with the people there in front of you. And no one is able to do that right now because there's so many different stimulus out there and other factors that are distracting people. And I think a lot of that is attributed to what we've created on our culture and society of what's acceptable, what's normal, of just, like kids even getting their cell phones, right? It was at a certain point, it was like a luxury, right? And then it was imperative so you could keep connected with your kids. And now it's just kids get them when they're like 5 or 6. And that's wild to me because the brain isn't ready to handle that. And it's evident in the fact that no one can pay attention. And that's a problem because as a teacher, and I'm trying to teach skills that it's an interesting conversation of what people think our school system is like, right? And as an educator, what we should be teaching our kids. And some of the things that we're teaching are outdated. There are things that we need to adjust and help prepare for because life and society is different now, right? And so a lot of our things are archaic and we have to make sure we evolve with that. But I think a lot of it is none of that information can get digested because no one can pay attention. I'm a pretty entertaining person, but I have kids who literally have to like wave my hands in front of them to get their attention because they're in La La Land. I have no idea where they are, but they have no idea what I'm trying to teach them. And those little steps are missed because chunks of what they've been taught have been missing. And by the time I get them in 3rd grade, even in that short time period from kindergarten to 3rd grade, if they don't have those parts, the things that I'm now teaching them that I'm supposed to be adding and stacking on to their foundation are not strong because they don't have that. So it's my very long-winded way of basically saying things have definitely changed in our society.
Yeah, that's Q is a big component of Q is those vital life skills. And as you say, the earlier the better. It's only going to be more difficult the longer you leave it. And so I guess just to say that you look at it from that perspective I believe is a good perspective in trying to at least to see that problem for what it is and contemplate it.
I know. I think all the time, I'm like, what can we do to counteract this, right? Like, do other people even notice that this is happening? It's kind of like I'm a big analogy person of just like when you put a lobster in a pot to cook it, right? Does it realize that it's getting hotter in here and things are like, we have to realize that there's a problem. What can we do to solve that? And can I do something just on my own or as a collective? I need to reach out and find other like-minded people to hopefully start this conversation and hopefully do something to remedy it, because the longer we leave this to sit and fester, it's going to get worse, and it's already really infecting our whole society.
Among many other problems, and I guess that's the one of the unfortunate things of our time, is that there is just not enough time to deal with all the problems, especially at the same time, and
Right.
especially when everyone has such unique experiences and desires and needs and passions and experiences, of course, and we tend to put up a wall against those that disagree with us. And the irony, of course, is that that just limits us. It limits our potential to grow and to learn. Okay. So then the internet. If someone unplugged it tomorrow, right, they've got that big old power cable and they pulled it out and suddenly there was no internet and they could never plug it back in. Firstly, how would that make you feel?
As a woman of a certain age, I tell my kids all the time, I was like, guys, when I was born, there was no internet, and their faces are like, what? Like, we did exist before that happened, right? There are definitely pros and cons of the internet being created. We have more information at our hands at any point, right? But at the same time, we don't think often, right? There are lots of times when you're having a conversation with someone and you're like, oh, I can't remember. Let me just Google. Let me look that up real quick. It's in there. We just have to have some effort to think about that a little bit more. And I think that kind of lends to the whole quick-paced expectation of instant gratification that people expect and need because of that, right? Let's time travel and go back to something called an encyclopedia, or going to the library and reading more, right? Reading is an amazing thing that not a lot of people do. I'm guilty of that as well because I'm constantly going. But man, I love a book. Like, to be able to read and gain knowledge about something, especially something you don't know about, it enriches your life and improves your knowledge and ability to have conversations and share something with someone, right? So I don't think it'd be the worst thing if the internet disappeared. I think it would cause some despair for a lot of people, but it would create a lot more opportunities for people to gain knowledge in different ways and be able to share it. So I'd be okay with it.
You'd feel kind of a so-so about it, like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, humans are resilient, right? So if that was something that was terribly taken away, I think that we would survive. I think we actually might thrive a little bit more because it would force us to actually be more creative and use ourselves as a different way to spread information and share it, So I think looking back, I'm a big history person, of looking back of like how newspapers came around, right? And how things escalated and how we get our news now today has changed so much back from newspapers. So it'd be interesting to lose the internet if we would go back to newspapers, magazines, and being able to enjoy print again, because there's value to that.
And there'll be no streaming, right? So it'll be back to
Right.
terrestrial television.
Right. I don't know how anybody would be able to watch this lovely interview, but
It would not exist.
they'd find another way somehow.
On the network.
Right.
So, like, how are the ways that the internet makes your life better? What are the ways it makes your life better?
Right. So I think social media is a very big thing. I feel like there's pros and cons to it, right? I have really tried to take advantage of the pros of that for myself, just to gain knowledge, right? To connect with people. I'm a very big human connector, and I like to meet people, but it's not always feasible, right? So being able to scroll and get to know people, I always joke that when I'm out in the wild and if somebody walks up to me, or if I walk up to somebody and I recognize them, it's always this weird moment of like, I know you. How do I know you? And it's just, sharing more about yourself, right? My business, I'm able to do that, but just on a human level, I think for me, I've used social media as a great way to learn more about people, their businesses, organizations, and opinions, right? And gaining that. It's helped me feel more connected to my community. There are obviously drawbacks to that as well. It sucks up a lot of my time when I have other things to do. It can be a distractor. But for me, I definitely have used the internet as a good source of connecting with people and gaining information.
And what are some of the biggest negative impacts you felt over the years of, as you say, like, I think I got my first cell phone when I was 13, 14, and you get your £10 credit, $10 credit, and it would cost 5 cents to send a text message, and if you did like one that was too long, it would cost 10
think really
cents
hard
and
about
15.
it, right?
You had to be really deliberate about the words you used, and
right.
And obviously, now we're here. I feel very fortunate to have grown up without the internet, without all of that. My gosh, I so grateful.
Yeah, and being able to live right as a teenager now in social media, the things nobody needs to see what I was doing then, and the ability to be able to have that can be very detrimental for some people, right? Things that they've done in their youth is found out as adults, and there are repercussions because of that. And you don't think about that in the moment because you're a teenager and you're acting at the brain capacity that your brain is able to do things, right? And so you can't be held to the same expectations. And yet here we are giving those people devices that are recording things that shouldn't be recorded, or, nobody needs to see that part of it. So there are a lot of negative parts of that, like with anything, you have to consider,
You have a lot of ambition, and you're very curious. I guess, do you think you're on the right path for you?
I think so. I think it's really important for me. I constantly reflecting, right? I look back and I show gratitude for the things that I've gone through. And going forward, I think it's something that I'm very specific about, of what I'm proud of, what I've learned. I've gone through some awful things, but I think how people handle adversity says a lot about them. Of like, it could be awful and I could wallow in that, or I could think, man, that really sucked. And what can I learn from that, right? So I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I've learned a lot. And I think it empowers and enriches every chapter that I have. And I'm looking forward to those. Like, a lot of people are afraid of getting older. And I'm like, man, this feels really good where I am right now. And I've learned a lot from my mistakes, but going forward, I'm really excited about the goals that I have for myself, what I'm ready to accomplish. And so I've already forgotten what the original question is, but I am excited about the future and what I'm going to create, because I think that mindset is a growth mindset that I really choose to have, instead of living in a fixed mindset of, this is awful, I don't want to be there, and not do anything about it. So
the question was, do you feel like you're on the right path? And that does answer it. Like
good, I was getting there.
Yeah, I feel it feels very much to me like the answer is yes, and you gave you a much better answer than just saying yes.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear, because I certainly see that in you, and how hard you work on all your projects, and so you're on your path. That's great. You have a lot of kids that go through your classroom over the years, and as the world shifts, right, and you think these kids are 4, 5, 6, 7 years old and around your age, and they're going to be stepping into a world which is so completely different. And when I say that, I say completely different in that we don't even know what that world is going to look like. Like, we don't know what it's going to look like in a year, let alone
Right.
10, 15 years, when they're going to be entering college or the workforce, if that's still the thing.
Right.
Like, I guess, how do you wrestle with that as a teacher? Like, how do you wrestle with this uncertainty about what life is going to bring? Because I imagine there must be a huge element of teaching, of preparing people for the world.
Right.
And again, there's lots of things that will remain consistent, but there are other key parts that will change, and we can't know them. So,
right.
How do you, I guess, reflect and consider that uncertainty in your life, maybe it's your teaching, maybe it's your personal life with your kids?
Right. I think so. As a teacher, I'm held to the New York State standards that I'm supposed to teach, and I hit my curriculum, right? But I always tell my students, they're like 7, 8 years old, in third grade and moving on. I focus a lot on like the basic tenets of what it's like to be a good person, right? What are some life skills that you're going to need that can translate into whatever you're going to do? So I'm big on the trades. You don't always just have to go to college. You can learn a really great skilled trade and make a great living. I always tell them, you'll make more than me. Like you just have to make sure you know how to listen. So the basic things that I always make sure that I have them do is, are you able to listen and follow directions? You're going to have to do that with any boss that you have. I don't care if you're managing a Tim Hortons. I don't care if you're a doctor. Any job that's a basic thing. Are you able to do that? And for a lot of kids, that's a big struggle, right? So talking about what you need to do. So if it's proximity, if you need to get closer to me so that I can help you with that, that's fine. Or if you need to move around and you need room, go to the back of the group, move around and listen to me as I'm giving that. I don't care how you're doing it, but that's something that you have to learn about yourself and them exploring that, right? Knowing themselves. I think for so long, a lot of kids, we talked about this earlier, of just like thinking that they have to act a certain way. And I can attest to this as a kid of my teachers asking me to do something, I'm going to just nod my head and smile and say yes and say I understand. But when it comes time to me actually doing it, I can't do that. Being honest with yourself. And so a lot of kids, even at a young age, are taught to basically lie to protect themselves, right? So for me as an educator, I want kids to get to know themselves and feel comfortable. I like to create an environment that kids can relax and make mistakes. I openly talk about the mistakes that I make. I make them in the classroom all the time. I think for so long, kids think that adults are perfect, right? This is what we strive to be. And I am a great example of, man, I'm human too. I can make mistakes. A lot of adults, their ego is so big that they don't show that to kids. And for me, I'm very transparent, sometimes maybe too much. But I want them to know and to understand that it's okay to make mistakes. And what are you going to do to recover? What can you learn from your mistakes? How do you make sure you minimize them? What can you do to help prepare yourself better? Those are all those types of questions that I think as an educator makes me a little bit different. I have no idea what happens in other classrooms, but half the time when I'm teaching my class, I'll ask my kids, I was like, is that normal? Is that something a teacher would say? They're like always are shaking their head. They're like, no. And I'm like, really? And they always assure me, they're so cute. They're assuring me as an adult. They're like, no, but we like that. Like, we appreciate that. And I see it time and time again because I have a connection and a bond with my students that I like to think is unique. I hear from 20, 30-year-old students, they come back, they remember things. Like, they don't remember what the social studies lesson was, but they remember how I interacted with them, what I've taught them, and those core values, they're with me for an entire year, right? Like, so 10 months, it means something. And I've noticed and I've seen the impact that it makes. And for me, that's what drives me and helps me focus, because there are hard days in the classroom and it's frustrating. But I know that I have to keep showing up so that they see that and they respect that and they can do the same.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that. And I'd summarize it in that you create an environment of curiosity. Like, pretty much everything you said, you could peg to that, in the sense of just you're trying to instill them with this desire to understand and learn more about themselves and about each other and about the world, and that is the core of growth, And something I talk about a lot with Q is just that curiosity is the first step to anything. If you're not asking questions, you're not going to get any answers. And so, as a philosophy on how you teach your kids, I think that's wonderful. And I think that they're going to understandably take a lot of value from that, because, as you say, they don't remember what they learned in social studies, that they remember how you made them feel. And that's the important thing. And I imagine, especially as a teacher, you have kids from all different types of families, all different walks of life, and some of them have it easier, some of them have it harder. And to have a teacher that can make you feel safe and encourage you to be yourself and to not have to pretend to be anything else and meet you where you are is incredibly valued. So thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's a lovely place for me to stop asking questions. And as we come to the end, you're going to get a chance to ask me a question or share something else that you wanted to share that you didn't get a chance to, or anything you want to talk about for the last few minutes?
What I always think about is the relationships and the friendships and the connections I've made over the years. And this year is a big year for us, right? We met. But I look back at important connections and friendships, relationships that I've had that have been a core part of who I am. And for me, a lot of that is our adoptive grandparents that took my family in when they came from Vietnam. They're a huge part of who I am because my parents didn't learn English until, my dad did through the military, but my mom coming here and learning English and more about our culture was done with the hand-holding of the family that took us in, right? Because of that, that's helped create who I am. For you, have you ever looked back and thought about a formative moment or person that helped create who you are and who you're proud of?
A bit of complicated life.
We all have layers, right? And I think that's
yeah.
the part that's tricky. There's so many different people that I've met in parts of my life that helped nurture parts of me that have helped create who I am as a whole, but definitely different parts and components. So if it's more than one,
No, and that would be my answer in a nice way. I think that at college, aside from right now, at college I felt most like myself than any other time in my life, again, aside from right now. And that was absolutely to do with the group of people I found myself with. They were just an amazingly welcoming and kind and creative and interesting group of people that I had never been exposed to in my life before that. And it was so refreshing to me, and I felt safe and was allowed to embellish my ambitions, right, my dreams, and just found just great comrades as I kind of stepped into that part of my life. And so I would say them for sure.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Dotty. This has been wonderful to talk.
Of course. Thanks.